You're listening to Milwaukee Mafia, your podcast dose of Wisconsin Mafia and true crime history.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Milwaukee Mafia podcast. I'm Eric.
I'm Gavin.
And we are back again. I can't even remember. I think we might be close to a new year.
We are close. Yes, this is the final 1974.
Okay.
So you are correct, sir.
What are we talking about today?
So this is the union for hotel employees, restaurant employees, and bartenders, known as Local 122. Yeah, this is actually going to be my part of it's going to be really short because up to this point, there isn't a whole lot going on. So the union had been around since at least the 1930s, maybe earlier, but at least the 1930s, and it had always been the same guys running it. I was looking into this, and in the 1930s, there were two different unions. There was the Hotel and Restaurant Employees Union, which was run by a man named Jack Heisdorf, who I really know nothing about. He was an old school union guy. He got in trouble for, punching people during strikes and that sort of thing. So what you picture is the classic union guy getting kind of rough. I think that's kind of who he was.
Okay.
And the other guy who ran it was Phil Valley. And Phil Valley he's kind of our guy here that we care about. Phil Valley was involved mostly in the union. The union was his primary job. In 1960, so he's been there since the 30s. In 1960, he's making approximately $14,000 a year, which in today's money doesn't sound like a lot, but in 1960, that's a significant amount of money. Mm-hmm. He's sitting very comfortable to be an employee of the union. And Phil Valley, he's somehow a mob guy. He never does anything questionable that I'm aware of, but he knows guys.
Okay.
They have him on recordings in Chicago talking to mob guys in Chicago. Like they're listening in on the Chicago mob, and then Phil Valley just walks in and starts talking to them. So it's kind of weird because he's in charge of the union in Milwaukee. So what his business with the Chicago mob is, I don't know. But he knows.
Do they have
guys.
Recordings of him talking to people in the Milwaukee mob at all? Or...
They do. Yep.
Okay.
He is friends with Frank Balistreri, and he had been friends with Frank for a while. Now, Phil Valley is an older man. He's probably more Frank's parents' age than Frank's age.
Okay.
But they were both involved in boxing promotion I think Valley was probably doing it in the 40s already, but Frank was doing it in the 50s. So they knew each other from boxing promotion.
Okay.
Where Frank Balistreri had the Badger State Boxing Club, and Phil Valley was involved in Wisconsin boxing. I don't remember what it is, but some other thing. And the boxing club is basically just they'd raise money and then promote an event. They'd try to get a fighter in.
Okay.
At one time they got Jake LaMotta in. Jake LaMotta, for people who don't know boxing history, is now I'm drawing a blank. It's the Robert De Niro boxing movie.
The Robert De Niro boxing movie.
Yeah. Is it Raging Bull? Is that what it's called?
There is a movie called Raging Bull.
Okay. Well, I feel like that doesn't feel right to me, but this got to be
Just give me a second. Before we start, I'll look. Is it by Martin Scorsese?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be Raging Bull.
Okay. I don't know why that feels wrong to me, but yeah. So
starting Robert De Niro.
So it'd be like that. They'd get Jake LaMotta and they'd get Rocky Marciano, and they'd get those guys to come into Milwaukee and they'd fight, and the deal was the boxing was. Now we've got these huge boxing organizations, but this time it was kind of organized on a city-by-city level, and if you could raise the money, the boxers would come and fight.
Okay.
So, keeping in mind that in the 40s and 50s, television's not really a thing.
Mm-hmm.
it exists, but it's not like everybody's going around watching television. So when you have like a big name boxer come to your town, like that's a huge draw for the city.
Gotcha.
So they came up in that. The other guy who's involved in boxing promotion is a man named Ben Barwick. And Ben Barwick is the head of the Bartenders Union, which is a separate union from the Hotel Employees and Restaurant Employees Union. They will merge at a certain point, and then Valley and Barwick will be working together.
Okay. But
they're two separate unions, but they all know each other, partially because they're in similar unions, but also because they're all in this boxing thing.
Okay.
Going way back, Ben Barwick is a strange guy too. Ben Barwick is from Stevens Point originally. He moved to Milwaukee as a young man, got involved with the union. I don't know that he ever had a job other than working for the Bartenders Union. And it's weird, like, he never really got bad press. Like, later on, he kind of does when, like, there's the mob insinuations. But his wife gets in trouble.
Okay.
Because apparently, I'm going to try to be polite about this as I can, but apparently his wife, prior to marrying him, was a hustler.
Okay.
And she would sleep with the vice cops. And so, like, she got called to testify about, like, the different affairs she had with vice cops in Milwaukee. Which I'm sure Ben Barwick loved that his wife was getting, like, front page news for sleeping with all the cops, but not when they were married.
Okay.
Yep. So by the 1960s, the FBI starts kind of looking into the unions, just partially because the FBI looks into unions. The unions have kind of these bad reputations. Not all unions do, but certain ones do. And these definitely do, because if you're the union for restaurants and bartenders, you are the union for places that have these mob connections. Mm-hmm. So the FBI is concerned about that. Also, in this particular instance, because these guys have that Frank Balistreri link through the boxing, they suspect that there's a possibility there's a closer tie to this kind of union than to certain other unions in town. Mm-hmm. So who knows? They don't find a whole lot of trouble. They do find some guys who are like union officials who have minor records. One guy's got like a vagrancy record. One guy's got disorderly conduct. One guy's got lewd and lascivious behavior. Exactly what he was doing, I don't know. They do find various gambling, and there are rumors that these guys are regularly gambling. But like, these aren't things that like the FBI is super concerned about. They're like, and when we want to find, like, when they're looking into these unions, they want to find the misuse of union funds. That's what the FBI cares about.
And pretty much it's up to me, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but everything that you just read off there that these people are like guilty of mm-hmm. are throwaway things. Like, I mean, vagrancy, for God's sakes, anybody could get vagrancy.
Vagrancy is a joke, but yeah, like, these aren't major. Lewd and lascivious, I mean, it depends what it was. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe that was something
but
nasty,
that could be you just got drunk and did something stupid, right?
Right.
Yeah,
lewd and lascivious is you did something sexual that was inappropriate, but it's generally nothing super serious, mm-hmm. or you would get charged with a more serious crime. It might be, not that this isn't serious, but it might be you're drunk at a bar and you think it's funny to flash somebody.
Yeah. Like, and that's what I envision is that this is not something that we need to be afraid of this person because they did it.
Not okay. Don't do that.
But
dear listeners, do not flash people. But relatively minor. Because, like, dumb things happen in bars. All right. So an FBI agent talks to Ben Barwick of the Bartenders Union in 1961. He's looking into things, and he kind of uses as a pretext that that he's looking into where they're getting their cars from. He says, we got rumors that you're buying cars below cost, which is suspicious. And Ben Barwick is like, yeah, we get our cars cheap, da-da-da-da-da. And it is found that they are buying them from people who are questionable. They buy the cars from a man in Chicago named Leo Rugendorf, who is definitely a mob-connected guy. But there's nothing like really shady shown on the union's end. It's again like they're getting offered cars for cheap and they're buying cars for cheap. There's nothing indicating that they're doing anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't really lead anywhere. Ben Barwick is called before a federal grand jury in Chicago investigating organized crime. He was asked to provide records and answer questions for more than an hour. They found his answers unsatisfactory, and he was asked to come back, but then they dropped it and said that he didn't really have to come back. It was fine. They didn't think.
I like how you put that. It's fine.
They didn't think it was going to go anywhere. They just were like, whatever. 1963, as I said, the bartenders union merged with the other union, the hotel and restaurant employees union. So bartenders union ceases to exist, and now everyone's local 122. Jack Heisdorf is named president. He's not going to be around much longer, but he's already been there like 30 years. Phil Valley is the business manager and agent. Ben Barwick is now what they call a coordinator. I don't know exactly what that is, but he's gonna be important. He's just, I guess they started off in this weird role because he's kind of the merged guy.
Mm-hmm.
Phil Valley is also an international vice president, which means that he knows the other union guys in Minnesota, North Dakota, and Iowa.
I like how that's an international, whatever you said.
Well, so the way like the unions kind of work is you've got your president of the national union, which is, I have no idea who was running the restaurant employees union at this time. It's not important to the story, but like all the vice president, the international vice presidents, there could be dozens of them. They were just like the guy who represented a region.
Okay.
So when there was a national meeting, instead of sending the head of every local in the state, they would send the regional guy. So they would send Phil Valley to represent everybody in Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Dakota, Iowa.
Okay.
So these national meetings would have, I don't know, 30 guys instead of 1,000 guys there. So that does make him fairly important, because even though he's only the head of the Milwaukee Union, in a roundabout way, he's kind of like the guy who heads all of the unions in the region.
Right.
Not exactly, because they're all independent, but it's a whatever. That's the 1960s. We jump way ahead to 1972. Ben Barwick is going to be called again to speak before a grand jury. He testifies for 2 hours. They're looking into gambling, but who knows what else he's asked about. In April 1973, an informant says, and I'm going to put this with a grain of salt. An informant tells the FBI that baby Joey Balistreri was taken around by Ben Barwick to all taverns and liquor distributors. The purpose was to groom him to take over Phil Valley's job as the head of the bartenders union. Valley was expected to retire soon. Again, now Phil Valley's been since the 1930s, so he's been running this union for 40 years. He's getting up there in age at this point. The part that I find questionable about this is I'm not sure if it's Baby Joey, and Baby Joey, for listeners, is the son of Peter Balistreri, Frank Balistreri's brother.
Okay, so we're not talking about Frank's son.
Frank's son is Joe, and to distinguish his cousin, who's also named Joe, his cousin is called Baby Joey.
Okay.
That's not me like being disrespectful. They literally called him Baby Joey, because in Sicilian tradition, you know, you always name your firstborn son after your father, which means cousins all have the identical names. They get these weird nicknames to distinguish them. And because he's the younger of the Joes, he's Baby Joey. Even though he's a full-grown adult, he's always going to be Baby Joey. I don't know if this is accurate or if the informant was confused and actually meant John, but which you'll see in a minute. But maybe Baby Joey went around. I don't know.
It would make more sense for John, right?
Yeah, I mean,
because if provided I'm taking this as that the mafia wants to get their foothold in this union.
Yeah.
Which would make a lot more sense to have John there than per se Pete's. I guess Peter's son would be the same too, right? Because Peter was pretty deep into the whole thing as well, wasn't he? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Like, Baby Joey's involved in things. I mean,
okay.
So, no, like, it's certainly possible. But I'll explain, like, why I think that's unusual. May 1973, an FBI agent in plain clothes, so not exactly undercover, but, not really showing off that he's an FBI agent, enters Ben Barwick's office, pretending to be looking for a bartending job. The agent asked how he gets a bartender's license. He was told to go to the police department to be fingerprinted. The agent then said that he did prison time in California for arson. And Barwick said, "Don't worry, we've got jobs for murderers." The agent then said that he just moved to town after being away for 2 years. Barwick said, "Don't tell the police that. Just tell them you've been in and out of town." Because you have to have a residency to get a bartender's license. Okay. So, like, don't say you just moved to town.
And I think, yes, he's telling them how to cheat the system, but that's a pretty innocent thing again, too.
It's so. in the file, like, this is a summary, like, there's actually, like, a transcript of the conversation. It's not a long conversation, but it is funny where the FBI agent kind of, like, keeps being like, "Oh, but I did this," and Barwick's like, "That's no problem." August 1973. So, April 1973 is Baby Joey being taken around. August 1973, an informant said that Ben Barwick recently introduced him to John Balistreri and that all indications were that Balistreri would be taking over the union when Phil Valley retired. The informant said it was no surprise that Balistreri would get the job, but said there will be much resentment from members because John was so young. So this is the thing. Now, either the informant was mistaken the first time and John was kind of be taken around in April and now he's being taken around again in August, or Baby Joey was taken around in April and they were like, "No, you're not our guy." And then a couple months later they start up with John. Either is possible, but I kind of lean towards the informant got confused.
You think so? Okay.
And I think that John was taken around. Now, I could be wrong on that. And the timing on this is John just graduates from law school. So the evidence for it being Baby Joey is that in April 1973, John is probably still in school, whereas he would be out of school by August.
Okay.
So it's possible that they were looking at Baby Joey and then it didn't feel quite right. And then John graduated and they're like, "Okay, now we got this other guy. We'll try him." I don't know.
Is Baby Joey older than John?
That's a good question. I don't know exactly. Okay. I imagine they'd be pretty similar. So I know that. So Joe, the attorney, is born in 1940. John is born in 1948, so there's a little gap between the two of them. There is
quite a gap between the two of them.
Yeah. Baby Joey, I don't know when he was born, so it's possible he's older than he's younger than Joe. I don't know if he's younger than John. He might be. I don't memorize all the birth dates, so I don't know.
We're going to see if we can find this out for you.
Really?
You continue on. So
okay. I mean, good luck finding that out. Maybe you can. An informant told the FBI that the local was very weak and ineffective. The head of the union was old. And and didn't get much done. The informant said he never heard of there being mob influence in Local 122 and pointed out that not even all the bartenders who were employed at the Balistreri bars were members of the union. And I would say generally that this is accurate. I don't know if the union was very weak and ineffective. I have no opinion on that. But I would say that the mob influence was pretty weak. They had these connections to the Balistreri family, but I don't really have any strong evidence that they were profiting off of it. That will change later. We're not going to talk about that today, but the union will get in some major trouble in the 1980s for things, which will lead to some prison time for people. But that's not our focus today.
So you're right. This is going to take a little bit more of a deep dive than just a basic Google search.
Okay.
I should have probably known that.
I was gonna say, I don't know that Google AI knows who Baby Joey is.
Yeah. I mean, I can get some results on him, but nothing that has a birth date. So
okay.
So
July 1974, 2 FBI agents spoke to Ben Barwick in his office. He said he was president of Local 122 for the past 30 years, which is not strictly speaking accurate because they were merged, but he was involved for that long. The position is voted on by the membership and is good for a 3-year term. He had been reelected many, many times. He said the business manager, Phil Valley, also had his position through a vote, and had been reelected, for decades. The union had 4,000 members. Barwick said that around 8 months earlier, John Balistreri had worked for the union as an advisor. Barwick said John had recently received his law degree and wanted to learn the union business. Barwick had worked with Balistreri personally and paid him $150 a week. Barwick said that John lost interest and left after just 4 months on the job. When asked, Barwick said that John's employment was not forced on him by anyone, and he thought that John was a likable young man and a capable attorney. So, this episode is not... We're not going to get into some crime stuff here. This is very loose. This is just getting to know who Ben Barwick is, who Phil Valley is, a little bit of background on the union. Nothing really major here. But the reason I felt it was worth doing an episode on is because we have a recording where I talked to John about working for Local 122, and we can hear his version of how he joined the union and what he did there. Because this thing here, so we've got the informant saying that John entered the union because they were grooming, that's like their mob term, grooming him to take over the union.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben Barwick's version of the story is John just graduated law school and he was interested in the union business, so he went around and learned it for 4 months, then got bored and left. So it's either the mob wants John in there so they got an inside guy, or it's John was mildly interested, got bored, and didn't care. So,
what does John say?
Well, you'll have to pay attention to the recording and see. Now, John. I would be very clear. John obviously is not going to say he was put in there by the mob. He's not going to say that, like, oh yeah, they picked me out to be like the mob representative for the union. Like, he's not going to say that, but he does have. He will go into a little more detail about how he got in and what he did there.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I wish you would ask them the question of, was little baby Joey ever, when you did this, you should ask them that question. I don't think I knew
that at the time.
Yeah, probably not, but. I
do have a recording where I just asked him about baby Joey in general. So if I don't know how we would fit it into the podcast, but I do have a recording where I just asked him about baby Joey. He does talk about it, but I don't believe, I mean, it's been a few years now, but I don't believe the union comes up.
Okay. Interesting. So now is this union, because you said that you wanted to do this episode mainly because to introduce Phil Valley and Ben Bear.
This is just
I'm probably murdering
Barwick. Yeah, this is just to get us up to speed. And 1974 is when John's a member, and we've got the recording, so we're going to do it at this point. Like I said, the union is not. the Teamsters Union, they're a big deal as far as mob stuff goes. The Bartender and Restaurant Employees Union, they're going to get in some trouble in the 1980s, but prior to that, they're kind of in the background.
Okay.
They come up here and there because they know people, and, you know, Phil Valley's got certain mob connections, but we never see them really doing anything super shady. There's no evidence that, like, they're skimming out of, like, the funds, whereas, like, the Teamsters Union, like, there's some real shady use of Teamsters funds, but we don't see that so much with this union. This is more just like mob guys run restaurants and bars, so of course you're going to know the union. So there's a connection there, but I don't think it's as strong as it might be implied.
So are you thinking that this valley in Barwick?
Yeah.
Did I say that right that time?
That's pretty good.
Okay. The main reason why they're ever even associated with the mafia is just because they're in the restaurant industry, and mafia members are also in the restaurant and hospitality industry.
That's the primary reason. Those two in particular, also, as I say, they were in the boxing business with Frank Balistreri.
Yeah,
So they've got this long-standing connection. Like they knew Frank before Frank was Frank.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so there's links. Like there's clearly like both a professional and a personal relationship there. But
there's no evidence that they're using their role wherever
I
they are.
cannot tell you of any crime Ben Barwick has committed.
Okay.
I cannot. Like he might say some questionable things, being like, "Oh yeah, we can get you jobs," but that's not a crime.
But at the same time, anybody that's in Ben Barwick's position is going to tell somebody to do that. What he told earlier, where he's like, "Don't tell them you just moved here because they won't give it to you then," type deal. So there's absolutely nothing that doesn't make him shady. That just makes him human, really.
Yeah,
in a certain way.
Maybe human with like a dark sense of humor. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, and Phil Valley, he knows mob guys. He maybe when he was a young man, he did some shady things. I don't know, but relatively speaking, he's just like the old guy who's like in the union, runs the union, but doesn't really. I believe in the recording you're going to hear like he's just like chomping on cigars most of the time.
So with that, do you got anything else with this episode, or should we just cut it off to the? We
can cut it off to the thing. Like I said, this is just to kind of get an idea of what the union is, and then bring it up to John's involvement. We'll pick up the union again when we eventually get to the 1980s.
That's what I was going to ask you was okay, so this union will resurface, but it's not until that event in the 80s.
It's not until the 1980s, and in the 1980s, it's not even the same guys anymore.
Okay.
Phil Valley will be out, so like there'll be a change of people, and they'll get in some trouble for things, which actually leads to prison time. But it's almost like a different union at that point because of the turnover, and the mob involvement gets deeper between now and then. And
we are not going to really hear anything about Ben Barwick or the Valley guy from here on out. They might come up in passing at being at a party or something, but yeah, they're not going to be a big deal. Nothing significant, got you.
No.
All right, well, let's give John his time and let him take her away. So hang tight, and we will run John's interview.
You were a business agent for about a year, right?
No.
Okay. Just to kind of explain that for people who don't understand the union, what kind of duties does that entail? And
that all happened. Again, it's one of those strange things that seems to dominate my life. Phil Valley was like in his mid-80s. He had chartered the union back in the 30s with my baptismal godfather, a fellow by the name of Joe Caminetti. And he had a couple of business agents, two in particular, Ben Barwick, who was the president of the local, and a guy by the name of Wolf, who no one ever saw. I don't know what he did. But Phil was an international vice president, and he was looking for a successor. Now, I'm out of law school, and Phil approaches my father. He wants me to come to work for him. And I've known this man all my life. He was my father's partner in the fight promotion back in the 50s. And I didn't want to do it, but I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it for a year. And if I said, do it for a year, if you don't like it, you don't have to do it. But if Phil really wants you to do it, it's a great opportunity. You know Phil, he'll take good care. I used to call him, sit down here, I'll smoke a cigar. Yeah. Character. And I said, okay. It was their office was in the town hotel on 3rd Street. Now, I go to work, and I was with Ben Barwick. Ben Barwick was the president. And what we did is we represented the hotel bartenders, waitresses, maids, housemen who worked for hotels and restaurants. And we would go around and we would check with them and see if they had any grievances or if they had any problems with management, help negotiate the master agreements, contracts with the employers. I worked with Phil on the international issues. Went down to St. Louis when he installed the new treasurer. The president at the time, a guy by the name of Dan Hanley from Chicago. And, and got to meet a lot of people. There was a picture of Phil and a bunch of union guys and Franklin Roosevelt taken in the 40s. I wish I would have kept that picture. But Phil had ashtrays with his name on it and lighters with his name on it, and all this, he's a real character. And we would go around and talk to the membership and see if they had any problems, any issues, and try to work out the issues. And that's what I did. I remember I have one idiosyncrasy. I wear Gucci loafers. Okay. I've been wearing them since 1960, 70. It's one of the few luxuries I allow myself. I had just bought a brand new pair of loafers, and we went to Nader's, which is one of the union houses, and walked through the kitchen. And as I get into the car, I noticed I got grease on the sole of my shoe, and I thought, fuck, I'm not doing this job, I'm not doing this, But that's what we did. And then I dealt with the Marcus Corporation, and Nader's, and Carl Rash, and John Ernst, and we would deal with any of the problems, and Phil would take me around and introduce me as, his guy. This is my guy, and he wanted me to take over. To tell you the kind of guy, I was home on a Saturday. Now, Phil's, like I say, he's in his 80s. I get a call. He said, Johnny, you got to come down right away. I thought he fell or something, So I get dressed, I go racing down, I go running up the stairs. Yeah, Phil, what's the matter? He says, get the cards. I said, get the cards. He says, let's play gin. I said, Phil, you scared the shit out of me. I thought you fell down. He said, no, I fell down. He said, I just thought we'd play a little gin before I go home. So, but I didn't like it. I didn't want to do it. So but I did it for a year, and I was with Ben. And Ben was a real character. He was a real character. And a nice man, very nice man. And like I say, I don't know who Wolf was. He was a big guy. He'd come in and leave. I don't know what the fuck he did. I still don't know what he did. But Phil he didn't want Ben to have his job for some reason, And he wanted to handpick a successor. And he picked me, And my father thought it would be a good opportunity if I would take it. But like I said, I didn't want to be a labor lawyer. And I dealt with a lot of Goldberg, Prevet, and Ullman was their lawyer. And I dealt with a lot of them, and I worked on some of the contracts and the negotiations. But basically, we just dealt with grievances, if they had a problem. The maids had the issue, or the bartenders had an issue, or with management, just straighten out the beef, just sit down and say, back off, be nice, and that was it. It was sort of a peacemaker, I told you the story in there about when we're doing there's a master contract, and you have to have a meeting to get it approved by the membership, and they had a meeting hall. Everybody's yelling and screaming. It's like a three-ring circus. And Phil's sitting there smoking a cigar, And he was a diabetic, so he ate at exactly 6 o'clock. You go down to the town room. 6 o'clock, takes the gavel, starts banging the gavel, and the head comes off. Yes, quote, "This is a democratic union, God damn it, and we do things my way." Ben said, "Now get my hat." This is too funny. So that was my union experience. Real character.
Yeah, this isn't a question here, but just for clarification. Ben Barwick was in boxing as well, wasn't he?
I don't think so.
He wasn't one of them?
No,
he didn't come out of that?
It was Phil Valley and I got some pictures somewhere. It was my father and Phil Valley were partners, and I think it was Badger Boxing, but they did Graziano. When I was in PJ Clark's one day, and Rocky Graziano used to hang out there, and I'm with some friends. And to my friend, that's Rocky Graziano. He fought for my father. Yeah, full of shit. I said, Tony, I got a picture of me sitting on his lap. I'm wearing Dr. Denton's, the pajamas with the feet. Yeah, you're nuts. I sent my card over, And he comes over, he says, "Are you Frankie's kid?" I said, "Yeah." He sat down for like about an hour and a half telling stories. He was a very funny guy, But he fought for my father. Sugar Ray Robinson fought for my father. Marciano, one of the Graziano fought Vinny Sedone here, and they still hold the record for the most seats at the Milwaukee Arena, because after that there was a charity bout too. They gave the money to the March of Dimes, but they had to take out seats after that fight, so they still hold the record for the most seats ever at the arena. But I don't think Barwick was, he might have been around, but he wasn't involved in the business.
Okay.
All right, so that's it for today's episode. We hope everybody enjoyed hearing from John again. We always love when John joins us on this podcast.
I do love to be able to. Yeah, I love being able to use those. It's great.
So we will be back in 2 weeks with another episode, and we'll be back next week with a Patreon, and 2 weeks with a regular episode. We want to thank everybody for their continued support of this podcast, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the Milwaukee Mafia podcast. Join us next time for another look back at Wisconsin Mafia and true crime history.